Well, hello community. I just wanted to do a quick video on my reactions to Linus Tech Tips trying Linux again. For those who don't know me, I'm Tech Guy Dylan. I've been a computer technician for 14 years, going on 12 years in current role. I've been using Linux for the past 2 years, but I was a Windows power user before that. So, uh, videos by Linus Tech Tips, and let's dive into it here.
He does have a valid concern, though. With Microsoft adding more and more bloat that negatively impacts the user experience and user privacy on Windows, more people than ever are asking themselves, what can I do? Well, there's those Windows debloating scripts, but those aren't quite the silver bullet that they're made out to be. And there is Mac, but that's not a great solution for gamers. That is where Linux comes in. As the rest of the world
On the deep loading scripts, one of the ones I recommend because I also watch them, you may see me in the comments on his live streams too. Chris Titus Tech's WinUtil works great, but even he's saying that there's some things that they can't disable, otherwise it'll break parts of Windows. So very valid concerns there, and those are some of the reasons why I switched to Linux myself. So even though I'm not like a huge diehard Linux fan, I'm probably not even quite a Linux power user yet. That's probably beyond the point. But I just think that Windows has gotten so bad for power users at home that if power users can, they should switch to Linux. There's reasons to stay with Windows. If you get into a line of work where like using something like Adobe software or anything like that would save you a lot of time, like photography, then you might be better off staying with Windows. But other than that, uh, I don't think it's worth sticking with Windows other than if you are a gamer. The ultra competitive games that use kernel level anti cheat, probably best to stay with Windows for those as well. But yeah, those reasons are going to be fewer and further in between once companies realize how bad Windows has been getting lately. So that's just my thoughts on it.
identifies thanks to the idea of having so many choices, each catering to a specific user or use case, is amazing. And it is, especially if you love to tinker. But for everyone else, choice paralysis is a real thing, and with literally dozens of viable options for Linux distros, not to mention the social pressure that comes from picking the wrong one, it can be a major turnoff. Last time we did this,
I mean, he did sum that up pretty well. It is both a blessing and a curse for Linux for it to have so many choices in distribution. Uh, but you can sum it up to a few notable mentions. So, if Pop! OS wasn't experimenting with Cosmic as much, I would say them. But I'm more of like a Zorin, Linux Mint, uh, or if you're really into gaming and you're not going to do much more, Bazite. If you're a power user who likes to tinker, uh, CachyOS, because it's got the optimizations that work well for gaming, even though they say it's not gaming OS. But the optimizations do work well in games as well. And then there's things like Fedora too. I would probably recommend Fedora for some professionals, particularly people who are making their own kernel optimizations, because Fedora does make it easier to switch kernels than the Ubuntu distributions I've seen so far. So those are the honorable mentions I'd say. I'm currently on Cashy, but yeah, it's so I'm kind of biased towards Cashy OS, but there's a few other choices I would mention to people who don't have the same values as I do.
over 4 years ago. I call
Options. I don't expect much from this article.
Let's have a look and see if they've improved. Oh, XDA's article is from less than a month ago, though. And of course, the very first one is one I haven't even heard of. Nobara Linux, built on Fedora.
Nobara is pretty solid. I ran it for a little bit. Didn't really have much of an issue, but some of the software I ran was not available for Fedora bases. That was until I figured out how to use like DistroBox and be able to switch distros without switching distros, if that makes sense. But the Flatpak ecosystem, the app image ecosystem, has made things better in that regard, because now if you can find the Flatpak or app image for the software that you want to run, it doesn't matter what distro you're running, as long as you can get either of those two or both subsystems working for your distro of choice.
Quality of life tweaks. Narrowed it down, bud. Fedora KDE. Straight up, that's it. No pros and cons of anything else, just go for it. Unless you're going handheld, then Bazzite. I'd really like a distro I can use across all.
Bazzite does have a handheld version. I've used their desktop version before. The only issue I had with their desktop version is when you have to install system level packages, you can't just use Dandified or anything like that. You have to use RPM OS tree, which will create layers every time you install a package with it. And if you get more than a certain amount of layers, you can deter your performance pretty. It'll dive off a pretty sharp cliff once you get over a certain number of them. So that's why I won't really recommend Bazzite for anyone using it to tinker or anything like that. But if you're just going to play games and run Flatpaks, is actually a great choice. Bazzite is.
My devices, those options are ones that I haven't seen yet. Holo ISO, Garuda Linux, and Manjaro.
Because let me give you a hint. It's for the biases of the person writing the article. And Manjaro shouldn't even be in the top 5, especially for new users. Because what Manjaro tries to do is it tries to make Arch stable by holding back packages. But the reason why I don't like Manjaro is because they'll hold back different packages for different lengths of time. And what can happen is, if this package is only compatible with packages in this range of its dependencies or something like that, and you upgrade to a dependency that's just outside of that range, you're going to have a hard time. You're going to see some incompatibility issues, some freeze up, some composing issues, stuff like that. So that's why I probably won't recommend Manjaro for beginners, even though it is catered towards a beginner user experience because of the way they hold packages back. But it actually causes more issues than the Manjaro team is willing to admit.
Of course, Googling. Use a single desktop environment and the same one across different machines. Bottom line.
The single desktop environment is also a solid recommendation, especially for somebody who's new to Linux. So desktop environment's going to pretty much determine what your look and feel is going to be on your distribution or whatever distro you choose. Like currently I'm on Cashy and I'm on KDE. So typically KDE, unless it's customized by the distribution, is going to have a start menu, is going to have similar look and feel to your typical Windows operating system, but without all the slop. Like I can spam this key over and over again, and it doesn't do that slow down thing like Windows 11 does. But yeah, for instance, it's like a desktop environment. There's a huge difference, and I'll get into this later, between desktop environment and Composer or Window Manager on the X11 side. So desktop environment is actually a suite of applications. So for KDE, you have something that's called Qt, or some people just call it Qt. That's your essentially control language. So it's the primary control language of KDE. So that's how these buttons are built and stuff like that, is using Qt. But it also uses a compositor called Kwin, And messing around in Kwin settings is how I got these wobbly window effects. And then you shake your mouse and your mouse gets bigger. That's part of the compositor experience, and that's part of the Kwin compositor that's built into KDE. But yeah, that's the difference between compositor and desktop environment. Compositor is just one piece of the puzzle. Desktop environment is a whole suite of software essentially.
Distros, there was really only a handful that were commonly recommended to me these days. Manjaro, Chimera OS, Cashy OS, Bazite, and Pop !_O.
Manjaro, again, not a huge fan. Chimera is mostly big picture mode. That's if you want a console like setup. Nothing wrong with that, but yeah, you do want to tailor your pick towards what your expectations are.
If your preferred flavor wasn't on that list, people warned me about, those same people did tell me that it was a little bit easier for a first timer. I think I'm gonna take that trade-off.
Yeah,
Now, some of you may remember from my AMD upgrade 2 years ago, I actually installed Pop! OS at the end. Spoiler alert, I haven't been using it. I had an issue with my Go XLR, and I spent way too long trying to figure it out that I ended up defaulting back to Windows 11. It's also worth...
And that's more of the fault of the manufacturer. So Go Out XLR is not Linux friendly at all.
Pop! OS. Drive me, Daddy.
What, you guys started without me? My side of this challenge probably won't be quite as bad as Linus's, since I've been using Arch on my laptop for a while now, by the way, and I've gotten pretty comfortable with it. That being said, my use case on my laptop...
At least they can play into the Linux jokes and not take themselves too seriously, so I'll give them credit for that.
Laptop is fairly limited, so this is an expansion forward. I'm in, and I'm going with Cashy OS. The whole reason why I've been running Arch on my laptop was...
Good choice.
And we're off to a great start. Select your drive, can't see it. Well, I put it in a known good slot. Turns out the drive is bad. Why are these challenges always cursed?
Downside.
That's rare. We use crucial drives where I work, and I've dealt literally with hundreds of them, like probably at least 150. I have not had one go bad yet. So that's pretty rare for Linus to have a crucial drive go bad, at least in my experience.
Of a multi-monitor setup, this is my primary monitor, so we're trying to boot into the BIOS right now. So we're gonna go into Fedora. Verifying shim sbait date failed. Something has gone seriously wrong. I've done nothing. Okay, I think I saw something related to secure.
No, at the very least back up your recovery key before you do this, because some motherboards, or actually a lot of motherboards, at least the ones I dealt with, will erase your TPM keys, and Windows by default stores its BitLocker decryption key in the TPM memory. So when you disable secure boot, it'll clear that TPM memory. Then the next time you go to boot to that Windows drive, you'll be prompted with a BitLocker recovery key, at the very least. But I have seen it completely brick Windows installs before, to where you have to reinstall entirely. So I'd recommend, before you do this, back up your data, back up your secure boot, not your secure boot, but your recovery key for your Windows partition.
Boot, it is enabled. I'm gonna try disabling it. This OS version workstation, it's past its end of life date. What? I downloaded it fresh from Bazite.
That's not Bazite. The Fedora logo there. Bazite has its own logo for that.
Its website today. That's a scary warning. ISO for Bazite. How would you like to install? Oh yeah, so the drive I did grab had Fedora on it. I wonder if this was the drive I used in the Linus Torvalds video. Erase data and install. I will say, I think the default background's really pretty. I might actually keep that. Kind of matches the keyboard colors, you know?
39 is really old unless they filmed that years ago. Because that wasn't that long ago. That was like 4 or 5 months ago, wasn't it? So it's like that should have been Fedora 42 or possibly 43 by then era. So don't see a world where that's Fedora 39 unless they recorded it way before, and I don't know.
While I'm waiting for it to
Overthinking
install, I
it.
may as well do a merch plug.
Super interested
I mean,
in trying Hyperland.
I was just gonna let him say that. I mean, he can try if he wants to, but if the goal of the challenge is to get gaming as easy as possible, probably won't want to go that route, at least for that. I think that's what he'll decide on. But Cinnamon, Plasma, those are the two that I would recommend for him because Cinnamon, because he already has Cinnamon experience after mentioning Linux Mint and stuff like that. Since that's what that's going to use if you get the mainline edition. Plasma is similar enough to Cinnamon to where he shouldn't have had any issues with that. And it's, even though there's still some problems with Plasma here and there, most of the time it's minor compared to some of the problems that you're going to have with Cosmic. So that's why I'd probably choose those two for that challenge, or either of those two for that challenge. So either Plasma or Cinnamon, he should be gold with either one of those two picks.
You know what? Calling an audible. Let's give it a shot. Lemonade.
I'm using ButterFS or BetterFS on this. I haven't had any issues with it really. I haven't really, some people say that it has performance issues. I haven't really noticed those, at least on hardware that I have. Maybe if you have some older hardware, it might take more processing and whatnot. Yeah, probably won't be a good thing to do on older hardware. But yeah, I think they're probably using pretty good hardware, especially at Linus Tech Tips.
Or how I first read it with my broken brain is Limeline. Sounds cool, looks cool. Gonna go with Grub. I'm just used to it.
I concur. I haven't had a good experience yet with the new bootloaders. Grub works fine. Why fix something that's not broken? That's just my opinion.
Frackle is this?
Yeah, that's alarming, but enroll mock should prevent that from coming up in the future. You may have to play around with these other two options too if enroll mock doesn't cover it. So sometimes some other boards you have to enroll the key in the hash as well if they don't already have those in their secure boot implementation.
Do I have to do the secure boot?
Things. I have Discord working, which is super cool.
That's because Discord still uses X11, so it has to use the X Wayland bridge or whatever it's called. Yeah, that doesn't always pull your taskbar icons as well. That's just one thing to keep in mind.
Percent, and I can barely hear anybody. No, it's not you guys, it's me. I'm just experiencing Linux things, but hey.
His profile's probably not set right. So typically you have, when you do configure audio devices, I'm just checking my feeds to make sure I don't mess with anything. So I'll just mess with this one. Actually, this one's set wrong too, I think. So because this is a headset, you're going to have an output channel and an input channel. If you select the one that just has the output, you won't get anything on your microphone, or it won't even show a microphone device on it. So typically your USB headsets and stuff like that is going to be digital stereo, unless it's surround sound, then you might have to go with the surround sound. But if it's plug-in like these headphones that I'm wearing currently, so if it takes like a circular plug, analog stereo. That's all you need to know on that pretty much, and yeah, he probably doesn't have that set right.
I know it's not compatible. I'm still gonna download it because I want to.
I skipped ahead because I knew that display issue that he had, so I'll just show you real quick here, display configuration. You want a rate that's divisible by 60. That can throw off other things if it's not divisible by 60, because I have 180 hertz screens. So yeah, I think, yeah, 60, if you divide that by 60, you'll get 3. So that's why it works fine on mine. If I were to reduce this to 165 or 144, that would not be the case. So if you don't have a 180 hertz screen like I do, you may want to drop that down to 120 or 60 even, uh, if if you're planning on recording your screen. That's just one thing to keep in mind on that.
Try to enable the Proton compatibility later. Hey, it's enabled right away. Oh yeah, look, it like installed it right here. I guess while that's installing, maybe I.
You don't necessarily have to enable it. That setting that he went into allows you to change the version of the Proton that you use. So Steam by default, if it doesn't have a native Linux version of the game in their library, will download the Windows version and set it up to use their Proton. In fact, if you download a game that uses a particular Proton version by default, and you don't have that Proton version installed already, you can actually watch it download that Proton version. It's pretty interesting the way that Valve figured out how to bootstrap Windows games for Linux is an interesting process to me. It's completely remarkable that at this point it's pretty much magic, and a lot of games just work flawlessly out of the box.
Get some other apps. Captures. It also has access to the internet, meaning it could send your data to outside parties. Ooh, this is very timely. Well, I need Discord, so I'm installing it. That warning, as scary as it probably seems to a lot of people, I think it is kind of a cool thing that they're letting you know that it might be risky. So if you're a non-experienced user going to download,
It's a cover your ass thing, essentially.
But my mouse is not there. Like I'm hearing like like in my ears.
Some older games, you have to manually override them to Vulkan. If you're trying to use them in like DirectX 9 or whatever version they use, sometimes you're going to have issues, uh, especially with DXVK enabled. So yeah, if you have the opportunity to be able to, depending on the game, override it manually to use Vulkan directly, or disable DXVK on it.
This is so. Okay, I managed to find this. I'm gonna try to end the process. Half-Life 2, I think. Is this? Hello? Delete? Is that not gonna work? That's not gonna do anything? Yeah, I have 7 people.
Dave Plummer would be very upset as a task manager that doesn't work. I don't have a soundboard.
Waiting for me because I'm a special Linux snowflake.
borked rating. As of 2 weeks ago, someone said it's borked. So, yikes. I won't blame any Bazite or Linux for it not working, judging by how long it's.
This is mainly because of how hostile some of these game devs or publishers are to Linux. So PUBG, Fortnite, the two different companies that are behind them are like, haha, it doesn't work for Linux type of deal, and they just won't enable Linux support for their anti-cheat. And I'm not sure why. I have my way of thinking. Like, some people are like, it's because it doesn't work, or because Linux people are a bunch of cheaters. I haven't seen that personally. I believe what it is if somebody, especially a normal person, like installs a game and tries to run it on Linux, and it doesn't work for them, and then they call support. Now they're going to have support people are going to have to hire more support people, and ones that know Linux more, and they don't want to have to do that as an added business cost to them. And honestly, I don't blame them, but personally, I think they should just enable Linux support and not just say that they officially support Linux, or maybe put a disclaimer on their Steam store page. If you're running Linux, you're on your own for getting this thing working, or you're relying on the community. Then that way they don't have to pay those support people, and Linux players can still play. Everyone wins. But that's just my opinion on it.
Taking, that's not a good sign. A month without PUBG. Okay, well, let's launch Balatro. Hey, there we go.
All right, we finished the round. It's the next day, and I'm gonna see if I can figure out what the heck was going on there. Off to a great start. All right, I'm just playing single player.
That is a compositor issue, and that is because Pop OS is using Cosmic. This won't happen if they stuck with GNOME for a little while. Let Cosmic work out their bugs. Or if they went with a different desktop environment like KDE or something like that. It's just, that's unacceptable, at least if you're marketing towards normies. That's my opinion on that.
There now, let's see how this goes. Okay. Unfortunately, there's no in-game setting for it, but apparently this will do the trick.
And that was the Vulkan override I was talking about earlier.
And there it is, that was the fix. Be Helldivers 2, we're gonna be playing with the VIPs. I've never played before, so I'm finding...
Helldivers 2 is a mixed bag on Linux. A lot of times it's distro dependent, so if you have Cache or Bazite, you're probably not gonna have an issue with it. Everything else you probably are.
So much weird.
And now that it was on when I installed it, it was pretty painless. I do think it's a little weird that they still wanted me to type Universal Blue when I was enabling the keys. I'm not really sure why.
It's because Microsoft manages secure boot to a certain level in all systems, and they made it a requirement to put a password in relatively recently for enrolling a new key to make sure you're enrolling the same key that your operating system is prompting you to. That's why they do it that way.
In Windows now. Nope, can't type. After I fix...
And I can't blame Linus for this. It's devs, Linux devs, particularly the Pop OS ones, that are running when they should walk. Like, settle down. You don't have to switch to a new desktop environment right away, especially when the one that you were using is tried and true.
Being pretty darn intuitive, other than maybe the pressing the power button to reach my setting.
Okay, so I guess it's time for me to give my final thoughts on it. I think they gave Linux more of a fair shot in this one. They were definitely more diagnostic. They didn't do things like installing software before updating a thing and stuff like that. Pretty much all the issues they had were common technical issues you have when you're switching something like your operating system. And in Linus's case, I think a lot of the issues that he had was because of an untested desktop environment. So that being said, I guess I'll see you in the next one.